Howdy, readers. I'm Jason. This is Kelly.
Hi.
And this is Chapter and Verse. And we are here with a Pulitzer Prize follow-up video. So I will leave it to you.
So, I was wrong. No Lincoln in the Bardo. Talk about the winner here in just a second.
But Lincoln in the Bardo does sound good.
It does sound good. Yeah. I do plan on reading it.
So what I wanted to start with in this video is just explaining to you guys how the Pulitzer Prize is decided on each year. So at Columbia University, there is the Pulitzer Committee. And as far as I know, it's the same people year in and year out. But what does change each year is the fiction jury. Okay, so they choose 3 new judges each year. Those judges read their way through hundreds of submissions, and then they decide what they think are the 3 best. And they posit those 3 as finalists to the committee at Columbia. And they even suggest who they think should be the winner. And then the committee at Columbia reads the books, decides, okay, yes, these are worthy finalists, and this is a worthy winner. We'll allow this to go forward. The years when there's no winner, so the 3 judges put forth their finalist and their suggested winner, and the committee at Columbia reads through them and says, there's no way in hell we're going to allow a winner from this bunch, so therefore there's no prize this year. And in a nutshell, that's kind of how it happens. So, but let's talk about this year's winner.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a novel called Less, right? Less is More, by Andrew Sean Greer. And neither of us have read anything by him. Nothing. However, when we lived in Montana, what was once known as the Montana Festival of the Book, or MFOB, it was this huge annual writers' conference, essentially. And one year when I was teaching, I took my students to a panel discussion that Marianne Wiggins was on, and Rick Bass was on, and Andrew Sean Greer was on. And I am here to tell you that the Pulitzer Prize this year could not have gone to a nicer writer. He was by far the coolest person on the panel. He was gracious where some of the other people on the panel were condescending. If you're curious to know who those people were, just ask and I'll let you know in the comments. I don't know. I was super impressed with the guy. So I guess I need to read his fiction as well. So I'm always happy when these prizes go to people who actually seem like good people, because a lot of writers seem like less than good people. But anyway, and we don't have it checked out because the library.
Yeah, our library doesn't have it.
Yes, I immediately went to the library to get it, and they don't have it, so I put in a purchase request for it. And it's funny. The librarian was like, I was like, you guys don't have the Pulitzer Prize winner. And he's like, well, maybe it's not available. And I'm thinking, yeah, it is. And he looked it up. He's like, well, it looks like every other library in the state but us has it. So, but we'll have it soon. And we will, or Kelly at least will read it soon. But I think It sounds fabulous too. I love a good comic novel. Whether or not Less becomes a classic remains to be seen. Which leads me to a question for you. What makes some Pulitzer Prize winners become classics? And what makes some of them essentially disappear off of the cultural radar?
It's interesting because I think we watched someone's video, and I don't remember if it was a tag or what exactly, but it was talking about what makes a book a classic, and different criteria. And really, for me, like when I look at the list, this is my list when I did the Pulitzer Project. So it really is time. It's time more than anything else, I think. Some of these books were incredibly successful when they were published. Advise and Consent won the Pulitzer.
There it is. Ding. 1960.
1960. It was on the bestseller list for 102 weeks. So it was a bombshell when it was first published. And it's basically a book about they're appointing a new Secretary of State. Does any of this sound familiar? And all of the maneuverings behind that to manipulate people's votes and to blackmail them. And it kind of like sort of ripped this veil off how the American public perceived the people who were representing them in Washington. And so, yeah, I mean, it was incredibly successful when it was published. But now to have a book like that, I mean, it doesn't feel scandalous.
It's like the machinations in politics now have so far outstripped what they were then, what was shocking then, that the book seems maybe tame now. Would that be fair?
It just feels really dated. It feels really, really dated. Another more recent Pulitzer Prize winner that I do not think will live long into the future is Jennifer Egan's A Visit from the Goon Squad. If I were her editor and then she'd given me a chapter that was in PowerPoint, I would have told them, like, okay, this is really creative, or this is very different, but you're dating yourself because eventually PowerPoint will cease to exist. And when it does, people who read your book are going to have no idea what this is. It's not going to make any sense. So I think those are some of the things that can a writer tell you a story that, yes, maybe it's a specific time, it's a specific place, but the themes are more universal. Like Angle of Repose, Pulitzer winner, great, great book. So really, it's about not only the expansion of the West, right? Yeah. But it's also about marriage. Jason and I both read the book multiple times, and I think we read it when we were first married.
Like in the first 6 months of our marriage. And that's still the only time I've read it. I was supposed to read it in grad school, but it was I had already read it, and I was too tied up with other reading. And so I said, this is one I can let slip because I've read it, I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
And so when you look at the list of the books that have won the Pulitzer Prize for the novel, sometimes I think that the award is also given to someone because they were like, whoops, we should have given it to you for this. So now we're going to give you the Pulitzer Prize for this other book that's not as great. Willa Cather won the Pulitzer for a book that is, I think, pretty obscure. It's called One of Ours. It's actually one of the very few, it may be the only Pulitzer that's about World War I. And obviously people know her for My Antonia and O Pioneers. Not One of Ours, but she is a Pulitzer winner. Hemingway won once, Faulkner won twice, but for...
A Fable.
Right, A Fable and
The Rivers.
The Rivers, I would say it wrong. So.
Well, Rivers, Reavers.
Anyway, so I mean, much lesser known... This is still very difficult to read books by Faulkner. So I think it's just about time, advise and consent. I don't know any other books by Alan Drury. I'm glad he enjoyed the success that he did when that book was published. And I'm glad that he exposed something to America at the time. But his book will soon, I mean... if you could argue, it already has really fallen off the map.
I mean, it's true of other prizes as well.
Definitely.
There are Booker Prize winners that nobody reads anymore. And there are writers who won for arguably the wrong books. There are people who think that Ian McEwan should have won the Booker Prize for Enduring Love, which wasn't even a finalist, or for Black Dogs. And then he went on to win shortly thereafter for Amsterdam, which is a pretty horrible book. It's just lame. It's completely forgettable. Anyway, so it happens, right? And I think the trick for any writer, if they want their work to last, is how do you make something of its time and also timeless? It needs to be about things that are going to be relevant in 50 years or 100 years. And in a way that...
a chapter about PowerPoint...
Yeah. And there are other writers as well, right, whose work, I mean, setting prizes aside, one wonders how well Douglas Copeland's books are going to last. And I like some of his books quite a lot. But, but his books are so much of very specific pop cultural kind of phenomena in the times that they were written that 20 years, 30 years down the line, people might read them and be like, what the hell is this even about? Like, what? I don't understand what any of these references mean.
I mean, some of these books are probably still in print only because they won the Pulitzer Prize. That's the only reason why. And I will tell you, I mean, ironically, you know, again, our library doesn't have the Pulitzer, but I mean, most of these books, and I did this when we lived in Missoula, Montana, and I had to get so many books on interlibrary loan. If there's anyone out there from Anaconda, Montana, thank you, Anaconda Public Library, for having so many of these. But they were all, I mean, you know, that horrible binding that they put on library books for a while that's just all like one color. I mean, they were so neglected. You could tell that, again, they were on the shelves because they'd won the Pulitzer. And I would argue that libraries should keep these books. There should be a copy of The Store. Bet you never heard of that
The
one.
Store. In This Our Life.
Yeah, Scarlet Sister Mary, Early Autumn. I mean, you know, I look at the list and part of me thinks about the books that I really didn't enjoy. I got so sick of reading about, like, kind of, I don't know, almost like desperate housewives, like, you know, mooning over their balconies, the curtains fluttering behind them. Like, I got really sick of that. But the Pulitzer Prize list does reflect some phenomenal American literature. Looking here, like The Cane Mutiny. I mean, that's a great, great book. I mean, and again, you know, like Saul Bellow, like, he's an important American writer. Did I like Humboldt's Gift? No, I didn't. And I made my book club read it, which...
Yeah. I'll tell you guys that story sometime.
If any members of our book club are watching this video, I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, it's real brief. So one of our book club members, she got so frustrated with the novel. I don't know. She was like 150 pages into it. She was like, what the hell? And she jumped forward 200 pages in the book. And she's like, the characters were having the exact same conversation as they were 200 pages earlier. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's our Pulitzer Prize discussion. And yeah, we will see you guys again very soon. I've got a tag I'll be putting up later this week. And and then the list for the Great American Read on PBS. The list comes out here in 3 days. So I'm going to do a video about that.
These will be on there.
So a lot of those will be on there. You'll have a massive head start.
Yes.
But thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Adios.